As we walked toward the seep, we saw that the soil had been turned over, as we've seen when wild boar are around. Then we noticed some movement in the grass and assumed it was a wild boar, but it was going away from us, so we made a note and continued on. After some time, Deb smelled a musky scent when we were investigating some plants, then saw movement of a large animal in the common fig. We decided to move into the grassy area so we could run better when alas we saw a small herd of wild boar, including some juveniles, run just in front of us and up the hillside. These feral pigs are a nuisance, but also a danger due to tusks and their size. If you encounter one, make loud noise and wave your hands to scare them away.
This is a pretty big fig tree over here, and this fig tree is definitely a cultivated variety, common fig, that you might find in your backyard or something, but it still provides a lot of food and habitat for birds and for insects. So even though it's not native, it still provides a lot to the ecosystem here in the sea.
Why don't you tell me some of your tips and tricks for using the mobile phone and getting a decent picture?
So if you look at a flower or something, there may be something on the flower that you want. It may be like on a tall stalk, and you may want to take a picture of, there's a bee, a little bee or a native bee or something on it. And if you try and move in on it without having a set focus, it's really hard to get the phone to focus on that flower. So what you do is you open up a window for taking a picture, and then you put your finger out maybe 6 inches or so from it, and then you press when it's in focus, you press your finger and hold it down on the screen on that focus, and it'll automatically lock that focus at like 6 inches. And then what happens is now it's on. You'll see the little yellow symbol. It says auto lock, and then what happens is then when you see the bee there, you just keep moving it in, and then it'll focus on that distance, and that'll give you the flower in focus and the bee, and then you can take your pictures, and rather than trying to chase the flower and having it focus and not scare the thing you're taking a picture of away. So, but that's a little secret. There's a little bee.
Yeah, you can hear birds in the trees, you can hear the water running underneath. So you can record sound on Inaturalist. If you go to observe, you can just record a sound. So once you record the sound, you can upload it, and then other people can ID the sound and help you figure out what bird it was you heard.
So we're in a seep here, and a seep is different. A lot of creeks form by being at the base of mountains, and when the moisture collects there in the mountains, it runs down and into the creek, and the creek runs down to the ocean pretty much most of the time, and or a lake. And what happens with the seep, though, the seep is actually, it doesn't depend on rain so much. It's coming, the water is actually coming from an underground source of water. So it can go year round. It can be independent of what the seasons are doing and what the weather's doing. But it's a very natural. It's one of those things that if you ever followed it up, you'd actually come to a point where it would be where it's coming out of the mountain. Okay, so neat interesting thing is, like, if you look here, we're near the seep in the creek that's here, and you look, everything around it looks like this back over here. It's all dry, hot and dry. The grass is seasonal grass, right? Most of the grasses that we see now around here on the hills, we get brown hills now. It didn't used to be that way. Pretty much when our native plants that were here before the Spanish came, they had adapted to the hot environment, so they had deeper roots in the ground so that they could reach the groundwater. So they were green. The hills were mostly green during the year round, right? And when the Spanish came, they they came from Southern California where they landed and such, and came forward. They brought cattle, and and on their trips they brought hay from Europe, and it's one that, you know, it's not a year-round plant, but it grows faster, so it outcompeted the native plants. And now our beautiful hills are all because of all the hay and stuff that were brought by the Spanish, right? So that changed the diversity. But you see it's hot and dry. The grass obviously dies off and stuff. The water, if you look at the other side, that's one habitat, the dry area, the woodland with oaks and such. And then you look over back this direction where we've got the seep and water coming down, and you get a whole different set of trees growing here, and plants, beautiful diversity of plants and such along the creek, which brings in, you know, you have water, which is what insects need to lay their eggs in. So you have a place for the insects to be, so there's plenty of insects, and you have shelter in the trees and such, so birds will come in, and birds will feed on the adult insects when they start flying out of the creek, and you get this whole little ecosystem going. You know, and you've got the butterflies and the pollinators in here, and you get a lot of real neat diversity. And so this little stretch amongst all the hills here is like a little oasis, and but it shows you that, you know, what the habitat, how much of a difference having some water and the habitat in a particular area contributes to. You know, it's got its own habitat, but it also contributes to things that live in the really dry habitat, right? So this is kind of like a little area of euphoria, right? And so it's very neat to see. It's really neat to see, in the diversity. Just sitting and watching and things go by and doing what they do is an incredible, you know. And once you see it, you'll always remember it, right? So it's important to do that.
Well, is either scared or is chasing something? There he is.
So here we have the California sagebrush. It is a common chaparral plant. It's usually seen with its sort of pale green, almost yellowy leaves. If you ever find one, you can rub the leaf and smell your hands, and it smells pretty delightful. Fun fact about the sagebrush is that it's not actually true sage. True sages, they have sort of square stems, and if you feel the stem on this one, it is rather round. But it does have a similar smell to sage, so that's probably the origin of its name.
So yes, this is an elderberry tree, and it's a native of California. By native, we mean it's evolved here, so it's adapted to the environment. Native indigenous people would use the berries for consumption. A great habitat tree also. It provides lots of berries for all kinds of birds and other animals when they get knocked on the ground and such. It, you know, does pretty well because it's evolved here. It's better adapted to our environment, and with, you know, the changing heating and or warming that we're having going on, you know, it's got a better chance of surviving in this environment than so many trees that we've planted that haven't evolved here, right? And so this is a great habitat tree. So if you have these in your yard, or you plant these, or you have them near you, you'll see all kinds of wildlife, bugs, insects, and the things that eat those things showing up as well. And you can get the whole food chain going and see all kinds of really neat stuff in your area if you got these.
So can you eat them? Do people do anything with them today?
You can't pick. Well, you can pick them and eat them if you're desperate. But usually, what they do, you can make like elderberry wine, they call it, right? You can take these these are very small right now, but they'll plump up later in the year, and people do make stuff out of them, jams and things. You have to boil them, right? So like you would do any other thing, boil them really well and soft and mushy, and it's a lot of work, right? So if you can find somebody who's already done it, and you try theirs, you'll understand what it tastes like, and then you'll have a better idea if you ever want to try that yourself. That's my logic.
So we have a few cool plants here in the seed. We have this hedge nettle from the mint family, and you can see pretty nice tall plants, lots of little white flowers. And then we have the beautiful Seep monkey flower, which is a species of monkey flower we always see where there's even a tiny bit of water in the ground. You might see some of that along our creeks. So they really need water. Same with this mint. And then the shade here comes from a huge valley oak, some coast live oaks, blue elder, walnut trees, and fig trees. There's non-native fig trees here. Just a woodpecker flying, but I'm not sure where it is. So yeah, some cool plants. And they attract some butterflies. There's some white butterflies flying around, of course never stopping. And then lots of different damselflies that are here for the water and for the bugs they can catch.